Welcome to the August 9th, 2017 planning meeting of the Pine-Richland School Board. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My finger's frozen.
Here you go, roll call.
Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Dr. Vanias?
Here.
Ms. Dawson? Here. Mr. Sundo?
Here.
Mr. Kashani? Mr. DiTullio? Ms. Goebel?
Here.
Ms. Johnston?
Here.
Mr. Lyons?
Here.
Mr. Stegman?
Here.
Thank you.
I have no president's statement this evening. We'll begin with item 1.02, our first recognition of visitors. Anybody wish to approach the board, please do so. Step up to the podium, give us your name, where you're from, and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Linda Bishop. I live at 1009 Pleasant Ridge Drive in Pine Township. Last Friday, Pine-Richland High School was targeted by a well-known out-of-state extremist group for an anti-LGBT demonstration. They arrived with their signs and their boombox blasting their hateful message. Thanks to some Pine-Richland parents who organized a counter-protest, a large group of us stood against that extremist fringe group. Our message was that all students are welcome at Pine-Richland and hate has no home here. The responsibility for all of this lies with the 5 members of the Pine-Richland School Board who voted last year for the transgender bathroom policy. A basic principle of school district governance, and I know because I served on a school board for 12 years, is that all students should feel safe and supported at school, regardless of race, gender, religion, or sexual orientation. You violated that principle when you passed the bathroom policy, and a series of unfortunate events ensued. First, some students felt unsupported and uncomfortable at school. They filed a lawsuit against the district. The district spent $200,000 defending against that lawsuit. A judge ruled in favor of the students, blocking the implementation of the policy. A settlement was negotiated with the families who filed the lawsuit, and another $100,000 of taxpayer money, my money, was wasted to be paid out in a settlement agreement. All of this attracted the unfavorable and unwelcome national attention to our community and eventually caught the eye of that extremist group from Kansas who targeted us last week. Not North Allegheny, not Hampton, not Butler, not Mars, but Pine-Richland. The point is that all of this happened because 5 of you chose to ignore a basic principle of school district governance. The decisions must be based not on ideology, but on the best interests of the students, all the students. Hate breeds hate, and this bad policy was predicated on hate and fear, and we paid dearly for it as a district and a community. The point of revisiting all this tonight is to create a public record of what happened here last week and why it happened, and to resolve to learn from our mistakes. The school board made a costly mistake against the good advice of the administration and 4 board members who voted no. You must never let anything like this happen again. As a community, we too need to be vigilant against intolerance that singles out any of our students. We need to hold our school board accountable for governing not according to ideology, but according to what is best for all our students. All students must be welcome at Pine-Richland. Hate has no home here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to approach the board?
Good evening. Ellen Bossman. I live in Gibsonia. Relatively new to the district. Moved here from Georgia. Was very excited. Excellent schools, beautiful area, engaged educators. And then the transgender bathroom policy. I was shocked. My question for each of you is, what side do you want to be on? The side of history, who in the South separated blacks from whites, who had separate drinking fountains, separate bathrooms, which is what we're doing to transgender students when we marginalize them by separating them in separate bathrooms. That is not an easy decision for any child to come out, to confront their truth. So again, my question for you is, what side of history do you want to be on? Prejudice or in favor of progress? Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to approach the board? Thank you all for your comments. We'll move on to Staff Services Committee. Is that right?
No.
No, correspondence.
Correspondence.
My things are wrong. Move on to correspondence. Ms. Williams.
No board correspondence has been received.
Okay. Item 1.04, minutes for approval. Recommended action is the motion to approve the meeting minutes as attached.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion passes. Move on to action items. Item 2.01, personnel items. Motion to approve personnel and supplemental items is attached.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just wanted to say this was sad for me. There were two people in there that I'm sad to see go, Mrs. Hobaugh and Dr. Mayberry.
One point of clarification around Dr. Mayberry, the date should be 18, not 17. He didn't retire 3 months ago. He's still got the rest of the year to go. That was a typographical error on my side.
That just gave us a couple months free.
Yeah, so.
Is John, I'm sorry, but is John Harford, is he this year? Because it says January of 17. Is that supposed to be 18?
Yeah, that's 18.
Okay, all right.
I apologize.
Wondering if I missed something. All right, thank you.
Any further discussion?
We have more conversation around Dr. Mayberry, but since he still has a lot of work to do, we'll withhold those comments till he gets closer to retirement. He would appreciate me saying that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2.02, hiring of interim assistant principal, Dr. Laura Davis. Motion to approve this, effective October 10th, 2017, at a per diem rate of $327.
Second.
And this is a happy one.
The item has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2.03, girls softball spring training trip, Orlando, Florida. Motion to approve this, the attendance and application of the student discipline code for the softball team to travel to Orlando from March 28, 2018 to April 2nd, 2018 to participate in the Disney ESPN Wide World of Sports softball training program as described on the attached field trip request form.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Item 2.04, Policy 100 Programs Batch. Motion to approve as a first reading, Policy 100 Batch as listed below.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to amend that motion to pull policy 104, non-discrimination. I understand there have been some changes that we didn't have when we reviewed them all last time.
Yes, we received from PSBA an update on Friday. It does have some substantive potential changes, so our thought at this point with the batch was pull it out, we'll add it to those policies that we've already pulled from the batch, give it some time for discussion and review, but allow the batch to continue to move forward.
Do we have a second on the amendment?
Second.
The amendment has been seconded. Is there any further discussion on the amendment?
I would rather just, continue to have it in the batch. So,
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we're going to have a vote on the amended motion to pull policy 104 from the current batch.
so that means it's going to be,
Well, this is the vote.
yeah.
We're going to vote, if you vote yes, it is to pull 104 as per the motion that Mr. Lyons presented. If you vote no, it's to keep it on the batch.
Right.
Okay? Everybody clear?
Can I ask, why do you not want it pulled from the batch?
I just want to make sure that it gets reviewed timely and it doesn't linger.
It's scheduled to be put on to the Staff Services Committee with the other ones pulled. So that would be the time frame for review, as I understand it.
Correct.
So you can factor that in, whether you think that's
It
timely.
takes 3 meetings to approve a motion.
I get it. I get it. So, is any other discussion on the amendment? Everybody's clear on how we're voting? All those in favor of pulling 104 as per the amended motion say yes. Yes? Opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Amended motion passes. Now vote on the motion to approve the Policy 100 Programs Batch minus 104. The item has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the Policy 100's batch minus 104 say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for your indulgence. That complicated moving. Move on now to strategic plan update. And I guess this is Dr. Silva?
It is, yes. So we are happy to announce that our report card and the progress monitoring gradebook tools will be released here shortly on October 12th, so Thursday of this week. Grades 4 through 6 will be able to access the gradebook online through Home Access Center, and then K to 3 will be able to do so on October 30th. So some new highlights are that the gradebook is arranged now by class and category, so that gets into the specific content areas as well as the competencies, the skills that the kids are to learn. Kindergarten, you will note that the competencies and the categories are captured on that report card, whereas in the other grade levels, it is just the categories, the overall course and the indicator or letter grade that they've earned. So that'll give a nice higher level snapshot overview of where the kids are. It'll also be more refrigerator friendly than it has been in the past. That it is now a one-page snapshot with some open-ended comments from the teachers included, so that by course, not just homeroom teachers, parents will be able to receive individualized comments there. And we also have included learner attributes, which are 6 characteristics that we see being integral to successful learners here at Pine-Richland. And so students in grades K to 6 will have an update on that per each quarter, and we're really happy to see how this comes together and hope that the parents see that their voice has been captured in it throughout the progress. Thanks.
Any questions for Dr. Silva? Yes, it was a great student services meeting for those who were in attendance, where we had more detail on this, so I appreciate all the work done there. Moving on, Finance, Mr. Sundo.
Item 4.01 will be asked to approve the normal monthly financial reports at the October 23rd voting meeting. Item 4.02, these are the first budget transfers for the year. Dana, would you anticipate more being put on between now and then?
Yes, actually. Sadly, as soon as I submitted the list, I had to add about 6 more. So there will be additional transfers that you will see. You will receive those the week prior
Okay.
to the meeting.
Item 4.03, we'll be asked to approve Jordan Tax Service as the deputy real estate tax collector. And item 4.04 is just a reminder, on November 13th, we will have a joint Finance and Building and Grounds Committee meeting, capital funding, project updates, and print and copy services will be the items on the agenda. And item 4.05 is also an informational item, a reminder of a Finance Committee meeting on December 11th, 2017 at 6 p.m. At that meeting, you'll review the audited financial statements, you'll have a bond market update, and begin discussion on the 2018-2019 general fund budget.
Dennis, for the record, where can someone go to be educated on the process by which a Jordan is assigned, why we choose a third party to collect taxes, and how that selection process is executed?
I'll let Dana.
We have, hold on, I'm trying to think. We had an elected tax collector for Richland many years ago. When he retired, there was a decision made between the school district and the township to essentially outsource tax collection services. Pine Township used to collect their own. I'm trying to think of when the process of that has changed as well. Essentially what happened was there were different tax collectors that were looked at by both the township and the school district. And at this point in time, all of the parties involved, the school district and both townships, have been pleased with Jordan Tax Service, as well as they are recommending to hold their fee. We did decide collectively between all three of us that it would be easier for the taxpayer not to have to juggle multiple tax bills. So in fact, if the school district went a different direction than the township, then in both townships, they would be receiving multiple tax bills at multiple times. Again, I'm trying to think back to how long ago that was, but there were different tax collectors at the time that they had looked at. And again, we've had recent conversations about, are we willing to look at others? And the group conversation at that time was not.
So where does a resident go for a summary of this history and the transparency of the process?
I'm sure that there was probably nothing documented back then. It was early on, likely in my career, so that would have been 14 years ago, somewhere in that range. So I'm not sure if the townships have something listed, posted. I personally do not.
Thank you.
I will tell you this, Steve, just from my own experience, since I work in this area, more and more outsourcing of this has been done in the last couple of decades. I mean, two main benefits. One, there's much more aggressive collection of past-due taxes when you outsource it. And two, just from a fraud point of view, a lot of these small places had one person in the tax collector office, and there, have been rampant fraud regarding that, throughout Pennsylvania over the years. And going to an outside service pretty much nixes that.
So how do we efficiently pull together a summary of what the process is and why it is, and ultimately why and how it's a benefit, and to what extent it's a benefit to the residents? And now I understand that there's actually two components, and in fact, the school district could be independent of the township.
The school district could be independent of the township, however, it would likely be confusing for many taxpayers.
That's an assumption. I appreciate that, but I guess the point is there should probably be a service to the township residents, so there's specifically school district residents, as to why this is.
Here's what we can do for the next meeting without significant investment of time. Candid. I'm talking the time it took Dana to capture a little bit. We'll add 2 paragraphs to public content that in some ways is her oral understanding of history. We'll caveat that so as to not put something out there, but we'll try to summarize decades-old history but not invest significant man-woman power at this point in order to do so.
Right.
Any performance concerns from yourself or from the townships?
No, as I was going to say that Jordan Tax Service, we do have our independent auditors go and audit the tax duplicates for both the Township of Pine and Richland Township School District portions. We have them audit that duplicate every year. So there are independent audits of that process. And as I was also going to mention is that I don't think that we are the taxing body that would be able to elect essentially a tax collector. So there is a portion of cooperation that has to go along with the townships. If they choose not to have an elected tax collector, then we, in essence, do have to outsource. The only option would be is if we would choose to outsource with a different firm, essentially.
Thank you.
We'll capture that in 2 paragraphs, and that'll be good.
Any further comments on finance or questions for Mrs. Kirk or Mr. Sundo? Thank you. Academic achievement, Ms. Dawson.
Academic Achievement has a meeting coming up that you'll all be interested in on November
Definitely.
20th. And I hope that you tell all your friends.
Yes.
Because you'll want to know how we've grown and developed and achieved.
Yeah, and we have this, I want to say, the second or third year when we've shifted to a single meeting in November for the purpose of this presentation being standalone. That way we're not boxed in by the start of a regular meeting. That report has evolved over the years. We've added different levels of comparators in order to benchmark a little bit more effectively, and the growth component has certainly increased. So we would love to have full attendance of the board, if at all possible, on that evening, and we will publicize that as much as we can to our families as well.
That will still be this board on the 20th of November.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a party. It's
Yeah.
a big bang.
I hear you. Any other comments or questions on academic achievement? Thank you. Mr. Lyons, would you take buildings and grounds, please?
My pleasure. Item 6.01 is a motion for consideration at the full board meeting to approve a change order in the amount of $2,142 for the Eden Hall parking lot as attached.
Second? Oh, no.
It's for consideration.
You were waiting.
Yep.
Zoned out.
Item 6.02, also for consideration at the October meeting, is a motion to authorize the administration to enter into an electricity supply services for Wexford Elementary, only if the price is lower than our current price at a target of $7,000 annually. FYI, Wexford is in a different service area. Thank you, Dana.
Anybody have any questions on buildings and grounds or the electrical supply service contract?
Just a quick comment. We received, to share a little bit about the energy savings, with the update, the amount of energy savings that we received from our other, alternative revenue comes up sometimes in discussion, and here's a great example.
Sure. We participate in the energy curtailment program for all of our schools. We've expanded it. I believe this year is the first year that Hants and Wexford both qualify for the program. In the past, it would go off of capacity, and they were looking at volume. That's why those 2 schools didn't qualify in the past. We have worked with a few different companies over the years, and I think what actually is happening behind the scenes is that one company ends up purchased by another one, et cetera, et cetera. So we're currently working with NRG Curtailment Services. When we received estimates for last fiscal year, we were told that it's likely that PJM, which is the grid that covers Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, and kind of down the coast, would provide a rebate for any participating district or company, et cetera, et cetera. They factored out what they felt our estimate would be, and it was just right around $10,000. But when we did close out last fiscal year, we actually brought in slightly over $20,000 for that program. So just a alternative revenue sample.
Good news. Thank you for sharing that. Now, the risk is, if they call us up during a certain period of time, we may need to shut the power down in order to support that. But thankfully, that has not occurred, and we've been able to reap the benefit of the curtailment.
Any further questions on buildings and grounds? Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Student Services, Ms. Johnston.
Item 7.01 is an informational item. It's going to be for board consideration at the regular October meeting. A motion to approve the student attendance for the 7th and 8th grade choir and orchestra ensemble to travel to Sandusky, Ohio from Friday, May 11th, 2018 to Saturday, May 12th, 2018 to participate in the Parks Choir competition as described in the attached field trip request form. Item 7.02 is going to be for board consideration at the regular October meeting. It'll be a motion to approve the AFJROTC students to travel to England, France, and Germany from June 28th, 2018 through July 11th, 2018, as described on the attached field trip request form. And of course, if international events raise a threat level to the United States and/or U.S. tourists in Europe, this motion would be rescinded. Item 7.03 is going to be for board consideration at the regular October meeting. It'll be a motion to approve the clubs and activities listed below for the Pine-Richland School as a student activity group in accordance with Board Policy 618.
Are these new clubs?
No, they haven't been board approved, so they've been clubs that have been in existence, some since 2012. What we've asked for the club sponsors is at least maintain for 2 years, kind of informally, before we bring it forward to the board to make sure that student interest remains strong. But these clubs are interested in doing some type of fundraising, and we would need access to the Student Activity Fund. So we are requesting board approval for these clubs.
And are these on the website, like, or the student, they just, yeah?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Are they on the website, like, for students?
Not yet, no. No, this is really just, locally advertised within the school. Once they are board approved, then we would add them to the website as well.
So when they have, like, the student club day on open house night, or do they have, like, booths for these?
They do.
Oh, they do?
Yes, they do. Any club that students, they first typically go to the building principal to ask for, approval to start. They need a sponsor, an adult sponsor, teacher. Once they've established that, they would be invited to the open house as well.
Okay. I just wasn't aware of some of them.
I even saw some of them had booths at homecoming.
Yeah, I
Like
didn't.
Minithon had a booth and stuff.
Yeah, I knew about the Minithon. That's been around for a while, but the, I wasn't aware of some of them. But great, thanks.
Okay. Item 7.04 will be for board consideration at the regular October meeting. It'll be a motion to approve the attendance and participation of the marching band and cheerleading teams at the Pine-Richland School District Varsity Football Playoff games. Item 7.05 is going to be, oh, okay. We approved trip requests for the playoffs for Whippeals and, is it for Whippeals?
Yeah, if you recall, we switched our process in
Yeah.
order to mass approve anyone who qualified, but we said we'd bring them back when they do qualify, just so the board was aware.
Can I go back to the clubs again? Just that, I just had another thought. So you have like policy 618, which I didn't actually read, but, so you said that you kind of informally do it until you see how much interest there is, but what does our policy say that we should do? And isn't that kind of in reverse, I guess?
Yeah, this is really, okay, you want to start with it?
So the policy 618 refers to the actual student
Fundraising.
activity fund, the true
Okay.
fiduciary fund that exists in our accounting system. So any club that currently has true elected officers, a sponsor, they're depositing funds, they're fundraising, and they're processing payments through the district, those are the groups that are required to follow 618. by these groups being approved, then they would be rolled into
Right,
that same
okay.
account, and then you would see on your, these are all high school, correct? Yes. So on your high school activity fund listing,
Right,
you'd be able to
okay.
see their monthly activity.
So, but don't we have a vote to have, like, clubs approved? I thought we did, no?
That's for that policy, and that's to ensure that when our auditors come in, they will go back and they'll double check. Actually, that vote will be coming up in November, because a lot of those groups have not decided upon their officers yet. So
Yeah, it's for-
typically what would happen is you would have class of, 2019, and they would have their officers listed as well
Yeah.
as the sponsor. Then
Okay.
we cross-check between the signatures and the sponsor
Uh-huh.
to make sure that everything, is compliant basically with board policy.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Am I back? Item 7.06 is a review of our Student Services Committee meeting that we had tonight.
So for the first portion of the Student Services Committee meeting, we took a look at the assessments that we're newly implementing this year, which is the STAR 360, the COGAT 7, and then how those relate to the MTSS process and the decision trees that we have for the district. And we did include the entire presentation in the attachment there, so if anybody is interested in further information, they can look there. We also discussed the report card update, which included an update for the grade book and the report card just discussed in the strategic update section of this board meeting, so that we are prepared for the first quarter report cards and the grade books to be turned on the 12th of this week, and then also the 30th of the month for the K-3 time span.
We then transitioned into school start times. This is a topic particularly for high school and middle school age students that emerges, captured in the media, get some phone calls, then it sort of moves into the background, reemerges. And recently, it has emerged again, in addition to a lot of information coming out of different studies or position statements from medical groups. And so the purpose of discussion tonight was to sort of do a 30,000-foot view of the topic and determine whether there was support from the committee and from the board to do some more work in this area, and then determine any potential recommendations from there. So based on the response, we will put this topic into the strategic plan update section of the October 23rd meeting, not for action, but just so that we can again publicly discuss it. We'll share a little bit of a game plan for next steps based upon tonight's meeting.
Any further discussion on student services? Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Staff services, Ms. Goebel.
Item 8.01, personnel items. At our regular October meeting, the board will be presented with a motion to approve a list of personnel items. And 8.02 is an information item regarding administrative regulation 246, student wellness. So if anyone wants to speak to it.
I can speak to bits and pieces of it. Most of it was developed by the nurses, Mrs. Bucknam. I know Dr. Silva was involved. There were a host of different people involved with it. I can't necessarily say that I know all of the ins and outs of the pupil health parts of it. Sorry.
The crux of it was talking about, allergic responses and making sure that the food services department is aware of any of those needs, and the communication that would occur between the nurses and the food service department to flag accounts for particular allergens, so that we were aware. And then also the availability of EpiPens and epinephrine within the nursing offices, so that should there be an emergency, we're able to get that and respond to a child in, the needed amount of time to keep them safe. So essentially, it's around the communication of that, and the training that needs to occur, and also the ability to recognize the signs and symptoms of someone who's going into anaphylactic shock.
The only one thing I would say could be added, and if it's in there, just correct me, but if a student is in a classroom or any other spot in the building that an emergency action should be taken, and the student should not be escorted to the nurse alone.
Right. Right.
So I don't know if that's
So
in there.
the protocol there would be for the staff members that call the nurse's office, and they would be able to bring an EpiPen, but in a lot of cases, if a student is carrying and has the permissions from the doctor and their parent to carry the EpiPen, it should be on their person. And we have trained our staff members how to respond to that, and upon completion of an actual training, then they get a signed certificate that they've also demonstrated it using a trainer tool to be able to respond, so.
But if you have a sentence in the AR that says.
something like that.
A student experiencing a suspected allergic reaction should not be left alone at any time, or something like that. And I would bold it, like, just because, like, sometimes kids say, oh, I don't feel well.
And they go to the bathroom.
Yeah, and then, on the way to the nurse, it could be, or they're like, I feel like I'm having an allergic reaction. That should not be, like, I think it's worth pointing out. That's just my.
Yep, thank you.
But it's well done, well written.
Any further comments on staff services? Thank you, Ms. Goebel. Back to Mr. Lyons, operational services.
Sure. For the regular October meeting, we'll be considering motion 9.01 regarding single sign-on. Mr. Stovner.
Thank you. With the integration of new online platforms and additional online curriculum, the challenge of multiple student usernames and passwords is a problem and a challenge that we were looking at. We have been investigating some different single sign-on solutions to simplify the logon process for most of our students. Emerging is a platform called Clever that approximately 50%, 19 of the 42 schools in the AIU have adopted. This platform allows for students to log on to one site and have their usernames carry through. We do our best to keep the usernames and passwords standardized, however, because of different requirements, it's sometimes challenging. Some of the online platforms require different complexities than others, and we can't always do that. So Clever actually allows us to create one student account and give access or pass those credentials. In addition to single sign-on, it also allows for integration from the student information system to upload rosters, so a student that would enroll would receive access as soon as the database is updated. So it's really a great way to streamline. So we have been doing some diligence on that, and we will be looking for the motion to approve at the next meeting.
It's interesting, as I work in the medical field, and we have to create multiple passwords, and they're going to single sign-ons. They're using authenticators or things such as that to try to throw an extra layer of security. I guess it's certainly so much more convenient to have a single sign-on. It's very difficult unless you have a robo form or something on there to remember all your passwords for you. But then also, if someone gets into Clever, they get into everything all at once.
Yeah. So it's getting a solution that's secure and that you can, in some ways, doing the two-step or two-factor authentication can be a part of that, and that is something that can be added for additional security. Obviously, at older grade levels, that's something that we're looking at with our administrators and our teachers, is having that level of security and having, requiring a second, you have your passphrase and you also have your device that authenticates who you are. So it is something that we are looking into for that as well.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the trend in the medical field anyway. The authenticator seems to be big. So. Okay, sorry.
So to clarify, Sean, so you'll have, so for a student, I get it in terms of like textbook logons, accessing online materials, but even internally, you would put certain external resources that you use as administrators on there as well? And I'm just trying to evaluate the risk. And the risk if somebody gets a textbook logon is relatively minimal.
The focus for this would be for student logons. So it would be solely for student and teacher access to resources, textbook resources. It wouldn't be for eSchool or any type of database outside of that.
Right,
So,
and when you mentioned the student information system, that was us pushing information into their
Correct.
rosters, not giving them access into the system. So
Yes.
This makes me feel better. Thank you. Okay, and item 9.02 is a reminder of the Joint Operational Service Academic Achievement Committee meeting on October 23rd. The 3 highlights of operational services: technology, food, and transportation.
Any further questions on operational services? Are they going to be bringing any food?
Driving a car, using a computer.
Thank you. We have a blank spot for board business, so I'm moving on to reports.
No report tonight.
Any other reports from any other places? Item 11.02, so we have time for our second recognition to visitors. Anybody wish to approach the board, please do so. Seeing none, thank you for attending, thank you for watching. Our meeting is adjourned.